Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
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 Hello.
How are you? You sound like, based on the couple minutes we talked before we hit record, you sound like you're doing well.
I'm great, Steve. How's it going with you?
Full of vim and vigor.
Teleprompter's broke. Usually helps me hide my emotions.
I feel as good as I did when America protected its airports during the Civil War or whatever.
Yeah, that was important. Yeah. South came for our airports first.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a hell of a week at work. I am so glad this is your turn this week.
Yeah, I'm glad I got my topic together on Sunday.
Whoa, that might be a record.
Because I would have not gotten shit done this week. And you know what? As fun as creepypasta episodes are, I know I'm gonna run that well dry. If anyone could, it will be me.
Yeah, we tune in and it's like, oh, it's your turn, Ben. What do you got this week? You're like, fucking nothing. We've done every single creepypasta.
I guess I'm gonna just read from a Goosebumps book. Fuck it. Which actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea. We could have a lot of fun with a Goosebumps book.
I wonder. I bet if there's a celebrity or an author that you really like, we should just plagiarize their work so that they have to sue us, and then you get to meet them in court.
Yeah, it was all a ploy to get your autograph on your cease and desist letter you sent me.
He's like, I sell those for $10, and you just spent thousands to do.
Yeah, but there's only one of these,
right?
I don't have a favorite author. I don't read.
You know what's funny is there's a bunch of authors I like. They're all dead.
That's true. I was gonna say, like, most of my favorite authors are dead. Mm-hmm. That's how you make it in the bigs.
Right. There's probably a ton of authors out there right now that are alive, and I'd read their book and be like, this sucks. And then they die in a car crash tomorrow and be like, holy shit, this book is so
good. How to
be
a successful author in the year 2022. Step 1, write a creepypasta. Step 2, struggle. Step 3, perish.
Well, I feel like I'm well on my way for those last two steps.
Step 4, count the scratch. So yeah, welcome to our show. If you have not listened to this show before, that was probably a very confusing intro.
Probably.
We tell each other stories every week, and they're about whatever. There's no rules. It's no holds barred here.
Yeah, we're like the Outback Steakhouse. No wrongs, just rights.
I think that's when you're here, you're Aussie.
That's what it should be. I think everybody should, like, all the restaurants should team up and adopt the exact same slogan, except for slogan.
Slogo the clown.
Slogo, yeah. A slogo is a slogan/logo.
Yeah. Why not use Slogo the clown for your next event?
He's booked. He's very popular. Everybody's sitting here, our regular listeners, the 6 of them, are like, fuck, this is another episode where Steve's been drinking. I haven't. I've got water in my cup.
I actually have a pack of, it's like blackberry pear cider in my fridge, but I haven't gotten into it yet.
Yeah, you're starting to reach the age that you start to like collect alcohol because you're at the store and like, that sounds good, and you buy it, and then you just like, it sits there for a while.
Here's how fucking old man I'm becoming. I actually bought that pack like game planning for Christmas because I was like, I'm probably not gonna want to buy booze at any other point in the next month, so I should just have this ready. But no, stone cold sober today while we talk about Donald Neilson, which is a very common name. I'm sure there's a million of them. But this one was a murderer.
And that he's also the duck, like from Disney.
Yeah.
Most people don't know Donald Duck's last name is Neilson. And this is the same person. It's not like it's based off of.
Yeah.
Right. So I expect you to do the whole episode in a Donald Duck voice.
My Achilles.
About to say,
Like, that's the best I can do. My throat don't go that way.
I was about to say, good luck, motherfucker. That, in fairness, that's better than I could do. So.
It was like he's being fucking strangled.
I want to subject people to a half hour to 45-minute long episode of that. Just anyway, Donald.
It'll be fun to edit the show and hear that back to myself and be like, my God.
I want to strangle myself.
Oh, yeah. Donald Neilson was born Donald Nappy on August 1st, 1936 in Bradford, England. So it's kind of weird. I actually got this topic. I watched a documentary. I've talked about a serial killer documentary show I've really been into for years.
How to Become a Killer.
Yeah, How to Kill Good.
It's the sequel to How to Catch a...
How to Catch a Killer When You Are Him.
Yeah.
No, it's called Born to Kill. You can find all their episodes on YouTube at this point because I don't think the show's running anymore. But I watched the episode on that, and that's where I first heard about this guy like a month or two ago. But actually, like, trying to find like written articles about him was kind of tricky. So like,
yeah, I kind of feel like maybe it'll ring a bell as you get into it. But the name, I feel like this is one that I've come across and been like, oh, that sounds, and then been just like, nope, it sounds like too much work.
There's another English killer, I believe. His name was Dennis Neilson. And
I like to think they both spent the majority of their time killing, like arguing with each other, like trying to convince the media that they're not related. They're like, no, I'm not related to that fucker.
Well,
He's a hack.
Well, I think they're spelled differently, but I also got conflicting spellings about our friend Donald today. So one of the sites I actually got some of the information on was a weird, like, zodiac sign site for some reason just had a lot of this dude's biography attached to the fact that he was also a Leo, and his Chinese zodiac sign was the rat, and his birth element was fire. So
that sounds suspicious. Was this written by Donald Neilson?
So using those clues, you should be able to predict this entire story. Like, but I'll tell it to you anyway. Growing up, he supposedly had a above average IQ. I feel like every serial killer gets fucking told that. Sounds like bullshit to me. But his family was pretty poor, so they had their share of hardships. His mother would die of breast cancer when he was just 10. So, not much, parental guidance, shitty economic
also
background.
Kind of a staple of a lot of serial killer stories.
Yeah, usually struggles, but, the common, rebuttal of that is a lot of people struggled. They didn't.
Exactly. I'm just saying it's a recurring theme, but
totally. It's not an excuse, but it is a factor usually.
In fairness, there's plenty of serial killers that came from like loving, wealthy families too. So.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway.
So in these circumstances, Donald turned to petty theft pretty early in life. He was first arrested at the age of 12 for it, but was released with a warning due to his age, which is, typical Chinese year of the rat shit, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's damn
rats. Yeah, I think my Chinese sign was the sheep, which doesn't inspire awe. Really?
No, but it inspires ba.
Oh, that was a dad joke that actually worked. That was awesome. Donald would join the military at some point in his early adult years. I couldn't get an exact age, but that was kind of the time you could kind of, you didn't have to be 18.
Yeah. You just had to look at ish.
Yeah.
18.
And he served in.
Both of my grandfathers did the same thing. They were like 16 and 17.
Yeah.
And I think it's not that they tricked him. I think everybody knows, but as long as there's plausible deniability on the government's side too, they could be like, oh, yeah, we didn't know. Anyway.
So he served in Africa and Asia. when Donald turned 18, he would meet Irene Tate, who was 2 years older than him, and they got married, and she convinced him to leave the military. They would have their first daughter in 1960. A few years later, he had his surname changed to Neilson through a legal deed, as he was apparently teased relentlessly growing up for the name Nappy, because it's a reference to diapers. And he never wanted his daughter to experience that.
Diaper, yeah.
He took that shit really hard. That's another common thing in killers, is there's a tendency like childhood bullying.
Yeah. Bullying, military, like he's hitting all the boxes right now.
Yeah. And I feel like, if you're, an adult, you're having kids and stuff, and you're still thinking about how you're like what you were called as a child and shit, probably stuck with you to an unhealthy amount.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, especially when your response is to legally change your name instead of try to be a supportive parent that's there for your child and like teach them how to deal with, like those. Well, because clearly he doesn't know how to deal with them. He's still whatever. But hey, Nielson's not a bad name. Nappy's kind of weird, so I support his decision.
Donald Nappy kind of sounds like a Peaky Blinders character, though. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Upon leaving the Army, Neilson started a construction materials store. He also took up a taxi venture, and he was kind of doing simultaneously around 1965. These businesses went to shit soon after, because, again, a lot of killers trying to start their own operations, but, like, you should probably work for somebody else for a while.
Yeah, or maybe focus on, like, a singular, like...
Yeah.
Because those are two completely unrelated things. It's like, his wife's like, you need to get off the couch and do something. He's like, okay, I'm going to sell construction supplies, like buckets and bucket accessories and taxi service.
Bucket accessories. That's a lid for your bucket and a bucket
pretty much
you could put alongside it so it has a friend.
Maybe one of those little grippies for the handle. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but so these didn't work out, but you kind of get the impression that Donald, like, you don't really know what motivated Donald to join the military, but you get the impression he was really into it. And then his wife is, get out of the military, be a family man. It's probably a little difficult to go straight when you kind of have one sort of career path in mind. But like I said, I don't know really what motivated him to join the Army, but it damn sure wasn't to get his life in order and go straight. Because once those businesses fell off, he jumped right to raiding houses.
Well, you do.
He would drill holes into locks and break in. Supposedly, he robbed over 400 houses without being detected.
Well, good for him. He found his niche, his talent.
Yeah,
because it takes some skill to do that to 400 houses and get away with it.
Well, that's where people kind of get the idea that, like, he might have been learning all the, like, tactical shit about the military, but not, like, none of the honor part
not serve my country. It's like, well, that's a pretty handy skill.
I can break in like that. However, supposedly this house theft venture didn't lead to a lot of loot for him, which tells me he either just stole shit out of people's fridge or he was shit at knowing what had value.
Well, maybe that's why he was so good at breaking in. He was targeting like these, like the worst houses. Like, well, this looks like a shit house. Let's break in.
But if I steal $10 from 400 houses, that's $4,000. Like, how are you that bad at it? Like, I feel like you got to get something of value. It wasn't working though.
He spent all his money on drill bits.
Yeah. He just keeps buying shitty ones that break.
He's just a bad businessman. He can't,
I didn't think of that, because the way they set it up is like he was masterful at drilling locks, but maybe he was just like tenacious. So Neilson needed to move up in the criminal world. So what do? Rob banks, deal drugs, Hitman? Nah,
All of the above.
that's small time, man. We're talking about Donald with an above average IQ. He was going to rob post offices.
I'll take those letters for all they're worth.
To be fair, while post offices don't carry a lot of money, and they didn't back then either, they carried enough to give one a criminal's version of a steady income. Starting in 1967 and continuing for the next 7 years, Donald continued to move from location to location, raiding various post offices. And at this time, post offices were small operations. Like literally the postmaster lived in the post office, like it was his home. And he raided a post office in Haywood in February of 1972. The owner of the post office, Leslie Richardson, woke up and confronted Neilson. Neilson drew his gun and pointed to the ceiling, and then, for some reason, tried to do a Caribbean accent to tell Leslie that the gun was loaded. Leslie, rightfully so, thought Neilson was full of shit and fought him. Now, Neilson was full of shit about being Caribbean, but the gun was loaded. In the scuffle, 2 shots fired into the ceiling, and Neilson ran away. Richardson did get a look at his face in the fight, but police never matched the description to Neilson.
Like, man.
Definitely not, Caribbean, though.
Well, that was the problem. They're like, it only looks like this one guy, but he's clearly English. Like, it can't be him. And that part worked. That's where the I can't help it. I keep thinking of that final fight scene from Half Baked, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
What part of Jamaica? Right near the beach. That was we used to quote that movie all the time.
Half Baked's great.
But yeah, trying to pretend you're Caribbean.
Give me all the money, man.
But that's extra funny to me when it's an Englishman doing it.
Give me all the money, mate.
And I'm picturing like the scrawniest, most pasty white guy you can imagine too.
He definitely he doesn't look it. I think this was something of a turning point for Neilson, where he decided that incident was too close for comfort, where he could have been identified. He would continue to rob post offices, but now he would be completely covered from head to toe in black. And if people had to die for him to get in and out safely, he was fine with it.
The first step is like something he probably should have started with. The second step is a bit extreme.
I think he wore like a half mask or something, and it was like came off in the fight. But
he wanted to look like kind of the badass like bandits from TV, and he's like, well, this isn't very like practical. Now I'm picturing though he's wearing one of those like I know they didn't actually become a thing until like the last 10, 15 years or so, but those just bodysuits, like the spandex. Like, could you imagine being robbed by somebody wearing that? Like, you'd be like, no.
Nah, like, to get an accurate idea, it was like, the balaclava, he had like a fucking coat and shit. Just,
I
typical home invader thing. For some reason, even though I know it's not true, I just keep like, even though it's the 70s, for some reason it's England, so I just imagine him breaking in with like a blunderbuss.
Yeah.
So
where did he find the all black pith helmet?
Yeah. He raided another post office in 1974 in Harrogate, North Yorkshire. He broke in and tied the owner's son up. He then went into the bedroom of the owner, Donald Skepper, who was asleep in bed. Skepper woke up and tried to fight Neilson. Neilson fired his gun and killed him. Skepper's wife described the burglar as dressed in black and as quick as a panther. And so Neilson's moniker in the press was born, the Black Panther.
Ooh.
He would strike 2 other post offices in 6 months, killing the owner of one in Accrington in Lancashire. In another, he killed the owner and critically injured the owner's wife. A third incident would occur that November when another post office owner was shot dead.
So, he just realized it's like, wait, this is way easier to just kill them.
Yeah, there's not a witness. Neilson was getting more popular for his crimes as they kept going, but he was having, very little money coming his way for his notoriety that he was building. Again, it was time to raise the stakes. Sometime previously, he had read in the paper that a 17-year-old girl named Leslie Whittle had been left a fortune from a George Whittle. This was sort of a gossipy news story as members of the family were contesting the will, as Leslie was the child of an affair, which should not
Don't
fucking
you love
matter.
that bullshit? Yeah.
But people become really scummy pieces of shit about wills. Where it's like, hey, that thing you never had, now that somebody else is getting it, you suddenly think it's yours.
Oh, no. I've seen that a lot. And, working in insurance, we deal with like life insurance and that kind of stuff. And I've dealt with it with our family too, when there's been deaths in the family. Not me personally, but I've, seen it. It's amazing what people turn into at the prospect of getting something for nothing.
Yeah. Like my mom, she has like kind of not like legally adopted, but like essentially adopted parents. They took care of her. And they had children of their own. And when they died, they left my mom some amount, they loved her. And like, everybody was all good with it, and then it became like that typical, wait, she's not blood related, she shouldn't get anything.
Yeah, what's that have to do with it?
And then because to me it's like, it's a will. If I want to give it to some jackass
which
down
you can
the street,
do. People give their money away to charities and shit all the time. I can't be like, wait, Ronald McDonald Foundation, he's not actually blood related.
And then my mom, it turned into a big fucking thing, and she found another blood relative these idiots basically to fight my mom out of the will, ended up losing money, and my mom ended up gaining money because they found another relative, and then it became a thing where okay, legally we have to split it all.
Yeah, right.
So it's a convoluted story, but the point is, the money was never yours. If somebody died in your life, that sucks. But it's not yours.
Right.
Be grateful for whatever you get. So anyway, so Leslie got left this stuff, and George had left his wealth to her and his mistress, who he had Leslie with. So this is just rich people drama for the general population, but for Donald Neilson, this was an opportunity to maybe make a lot of money. Donald had been planning the kidnapping for 3 years, apparently, down to every detail. On January 14th, 1975, he entered the family home and abducted Leslie from her bedroom, leaving a ransom note for £50,000, which I don't know how much that actually is, but it was a price he felt was small enough that they would actually pay it, but large enough that it would be worth all this fucking trouble he was about to go through.
Unfortunately, they were American, so they thought it was the weight.
Yeah, with a 50,000 pound dumbbell, the biggest one ever made. Leslie's family was willing to pay the ransom and were advised to do so by the police. Thanks, cops.
They're like, yeah, it makes our job way easier if you just...
To be fair, the police were monitoring all the drop-off instructions.
I assumed, but I wanted to make him sound extra bad.
Yeah, that's why I wrote it the way I did. Cause, the family were guided to a series of payphone instructions. Donald may have planned this whole thing too well, though, because his breadcrumb trail to Leslie kind of went on for fucking ever. At one point, Prescott leaks of the drop-off plan and blew up a whole part of the operation to the public. Sometime during this, Neilson was still kind of doing his thing, because you gotta make a fucking living by killing people. And he raided a depot and killed a security guard. His stolen car from that crime was left at the scene of where a payphone instruction was led to. This left some evidence about Neilson, so people were starting to connect like the dots, robberies are connected to this kidnapping, potentially. But Leslie was still nowhere to be found. Leslie's brother, who was trying to fulfill the fucking drop-off, by the end of it got lost in the park. Because...
like forever.
they're just
like, well, he's gone.
Just fucking wandering. Like, Neilson was waiting for the money to be delivered, and when Leslie's brother didn't show up on time, he panicked and fled. Police mounted a search throughout the area, but they never found Neilson. No further instructions were received. They eventually found the clue that would lead to where Leslie was on accident. Some kids would find I think they found some writing on a wall while they were playing in a park.
Wait, so did he become the Riddler then? Like, officially? Like,
it's like the Riddler, but like, fucking, it's not even, it's like the Riddler if there wasn't an answer. It's just like, but that's just one part of it. You go over here now. Unfortunately, Leslie's body would be found in a drainage shaft. She was hanging from a wire or some sort of chain, and it looked like only a narrow platform was the only footing that the shaft had to offer. And sure, her body was off, hanging from the side of it. Supposedly, she died from shock rather than strangulation. It's not known for sure whether Neilson had pushed her or if she fell, but the cruel way he kept her there.
I was gonna guess it happened day one. He's like, "All right, my plans are about to," and then she slips, and he's like,
"So it didn't happen day one, or at least not right away on day one, because he recorded audio to play over the phone of her, saying that." All this bullshit, I'm well taken care of, just bring the money. But the way he kept her there, fucking half naked in a drench, in a drainage shaft that's, pouring water and stuff hanging from a chain, he fucking killed her. Let's be real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you directly kill somebody or you set them up in a situation,
either way, legally, but I have no doubt he probably freaked out and pushed her.
Yeah, and pushed her. Yeah.
And the way he did it, it's just like all this time he's a piece of shit, but it's kind of he's a robber, so it always seemed like it was for money. But the way this all played out, it makes it seem like there was something sicker going on than just greed. And I really, you read the story, like it's old news with any kidnapping story, but I have no doubt that he had no intentions of returning her.
Oh yeah.
His whole philosophy at that point was no witnesses.
Well, and like you said, it sounds like it, because he had no qualms about just shooting people. So like, if it was simply about the money and whatever, he probably would have just had her tied up, like locked up somewhere, and then just shot her. Like this, like you said, there had to be a little bit more to it.
Yeah. So this made the police's plan to just play along with it seem like some Fargo level ineptitude. And at the least, the public was going to make sure the police fucking got, kind of raked over the coals for like, what the fuck? You just like,
even though it was kind of the public and the media that really blew the thing up.
Yeah. But
anyway, but that's about par for the course.
But you gotta, that's the thing. Like the press wasn't new. You have to navigate that if you're in law enforcement. That's why you have to be selective about like what gets out and when. And if you're just at the pub talking about, I think we'll follow the phone lines.
And I about guarantee that's what happened.
Probably.
Yeah. Or just somebody, because people just can't, when they know something and they want to feel important, like I could see just some jackass like on the force that is like, oh, I'm going to talk to the press because they make me feel important for 30 seconds. Yeah, a lot of that goes on.
Yeah.
But Regardless, they fucked up.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, it's,
and you don't fuck with the Black Panther.
To be fair, like, kidnappings are, even to this day, they're very tricky situations.
Well, yeah, like you said,
because there is a chance you can rescue them alive, but it's hard.
Yeah, because 9 times out of 10, like you said, they just want the money. They have zero intention.
9 times out of 10, they're already dead.
Right.
So his big payday hadn't worked out, but Donald Neilson avoided capture until that December, when he was just walking down the road near a post office in his typical Black Panther garb. You would think he would have a better escape route than just walking down the street, basically wearing half his fucking supervillain costume. 2 policemen, they didn't have to be the brightest bulbs of the bunch, but they were our heroes today. Tony White and Stuart McKenzie pulled up alongside him to question him for, being shady and weird. He responded by pulling a sawed-off shotgun on them immediately and hijacked the car, making them drive while he kept the gun pointed at McKenzie, who was driving. As McKenzie drove toward a junction, he began to swerve back and forth. They kind of had this, like, mutual, like, the way they tell the story, they're kind of making eye contact and, like, knowing they have to do something too drastic
if they're
going to get out of it.
Romantic thing, like
they kissed deep with tongue.
Right.
Yeah. And said, if this is the end, I'm going out with you in my arms. Mackenzie drove toward a junction and began swerving back and forth. In kind of the chaos, Donald's gun lowered for just a moment, and White grabbed the gun, and Mackenzie slammed on the brakes. They screeched to a halt outside a fish and chip shop, because there's always a fish and chip shop.
England's 99% fish and chip shops.
And I'm not complaining. I love the batter and the heart attack. I believe one of them in the gun went off and one of the officers was wounded in the hand or something. So Mackenzie and White got out of the car and they were struggling to subdue Neilson. Customers got up and helped beat the loving shit out of Neilson. So it just turned into an English mauling.
They didn't even know he was a criminal. They're just like, yeah, good old-fashioned mollywhopping.
He kind of looked like he was wearing a rival soccer team jersey. And they just fucking started glassing him. I am not exaggerating how bad he got fucked up. His mugshot is online. Look it up. He got fucking stomped. They quickly matched Neilson's fingerprints to those found in the drainage shaft with Leslie's body. He confessed to the kidnapping and was convicted of her kidnapping and murder in July of 1976. 3 weeks later, he would be convicted of the post office murders. He was given life. During this time...
it was nice of them to, give him a life.
Yeah,
here you go.
Yeah. How about one more murder for the road?
You're now Tom Smittywick.
Smitty Nappy.
Unfortunately, you clean out houses, but
you're Dick Nappy now. Your name's worse now. During this time, his wife, Irene, had been cashing the post office orders that Donald had been stealing, along with any cash he could find.
I was curious about that because I figured there was no way that she didn't know what her husband was.
No, she knew. She claimed that she had been following Donald's orders, and that he was abusive to her and their children, and she was too frightened to resist. There is probably some truth to that. The way they kind of tell his story in the documentary was he went to the military and became kind of an absurd disciplinarian, authoritarian household type. I don't know how scared she actually was, but I could see him being an abusive piece of shit. Unfortunately, for Irene, the anger and horror, the public outrage that happened to Leslie Whittle, about what happened to Leslie Whittle, Irene was going to be made of an example of, and she was going to get some prison time. So she was given 12 months. She served 8, and then was released on good behavior. Donald died in prison in 2011.
It's weird that we keep coming across these stories where it's like, it feels like so long ago, and then they're like, they died in prison a few years ago. And you're like, oh. And I did look up his mugshot. He did get fucked up. Like, it could just be like, yeah,
it's a Rocky. It's the end of a Rocky fight.
Yeah, well, and if you just look at the mugshot, it's like, you can tell it's bad, but it's like, oh, this could just be a guy that's ugly and got bloodied up. But then you see a picture of him, like, prior to getting fucked up, and you're like, oh, no, they literally, like, rearranged his face.
Yeah, totally. One little factoid about it, they said when they searched his place, they found a little statue that he kept on like a desk or mantle of a Black Panther. So that might give you kind of a better idea of what really drove him to do what he did. Like,
I kind of liked the
fame,
notoriety.
Yeah, like once he had a name, like, that became very important to him.
Although that's some like television like cop show bullshit about like being that.
They could have made it up for the documentary. I don't know.
Well, no, not that. I mean the way he finally got caught is like you have this iconic name and look, and then after you rob a place, you keep your disguise on. It's not a disguise at that point. It's a.
I don't think he had the mask, but I think he was just carrying a bunch of shit and all black,
dressed in all black. Yeah,
it's.
You need one of those jackets that you flip inside out and it's like neon pink.
And that is one of the things about like crimes, like when they get solved, because it's like always talked about, like we just need a big break. Like you're gonna like go through, like a TV makes it look like, oh, a cop's gonna flip through a file and see a clue that he missed or something. But usually it's just like you bump into him on a stairway and he freaks out and he like, it's like, oh, he's the murderer. Well.
He's like, hi, I'm Officer Peterson. Hi, I'm not the Black Panther.
I'm the Panther.
Fuck, you got me. I'm going to shoot you now.
Yeah, he starts making Panther
But again,
noises.
He fucked up because his MO, like, if he would have shot the 2 officers immediately, he would have had a chance. It seems weird to kidnap 2 armed police. Well, I assume he disarmed them, but...
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't just take the keys.
Throw him in a ditch, or just be like, get out of the car and drive off. We're talking 19.
Yeah,
when was he caught? 1980s or something. Late 70s.
Late 70s. I think. I don't know. I just read it, but I'm not opening my notes.
They didn't have GPS on that bullshit back then. You would have got away.
He kept getting away. That was the thing. I was apparently his military background really helped him in breaking and entering and shit.
Yeah,
I have to imagine it helped him getting away.
What it doesn't seem to help him with is like, because he's got this mountain of the Black Panther and he's quick and he's deadly and he can break into anything. It's like, but if his plan goes slightly wrong at all, he cannot.
Yeah, he had a fucking hair trigger about like the moment.
That actually makes sense because if he's super regimented and super disciplinarian, that might be why he's regimented. Maybe he just can't handle like.
Yeah, if the plan, it's like the Joker in The Dark Knight is like, if everything's according to plan, he's fine. But the moment one thing's fucked up is like he freaks out and just starts blasting.
Yup.
So that's that piece of shit.
I thought he was a superhero. You can't have a name like the Black Panther and be a piece of shit.
Yeah, the cops stopped him and he said Wakanda forever and they let him go.
And they're like, I love your movie.
Oh, man. I love how these Marvel movies don't stop. It's my favorite
They've even
part.
Seeped into the past somehow.
I like the part where this threat is unlike anything we've ever seen, even though we had a fucking roided out California raisin in the world. It's like, we aren't ready for this threat.
You know what? That's the scary thing when you think about it. So much of society and our safety and our day-to-day life just hinges on the hope that nobody tries it. Because But although, seriously, that's what kind of annoys me when they're like, oh, crime, there's more violence, we need more cops on the street. And cops on the street don't stop the violence, they catch it after it happens.
They kind of just, they stare at the crime scene afterwards like, never seen anything like it.
I mean, I guess there would be some truth to, like, the actual violent criminals that get arrested, that's one less on the street, but you're not lowering the amount of violent criminals. Like, they have to still do the violent crime before they get arrested. I don't know. This is a tangent, but we've got a second for it. There was a really bad, horrific murder near me. Not me, like actually really close to where my parents and brother live. Last year, where a woman was in was in a car, and these like 3 or 4 men came up and like killed her execution style. Mm-hmm. Just assassinated her, but there was 2 children in the back seat and they killed them too. And of course immediately Columbus, because it was technically in Columbus's jurisdiction, and they're like, this is why we need more officers on the street. I'm like, that wouldn't have fucking stopped this. It might help you catch them now, but there'd still be 2 dead children, because nobody's like, I guarantee there's, unless your plan is to have an officer posted every like block on every street at all times 24/7, which still wouldn't work. But it drives me nuts how they use that, like, that terrible violent, like, crime as an excuse to, like, get more funding.
Yeah.
But
the only answer is to teach your toddler to quick draw.
Yeah, right. Fire back at anybody that walks up to the car for any reason.
Yeah. Worked for John Marston's boy. Didn't work for Marston, but the son, he wasted that fucker. I think about Red Dead way too much.
No, there's no such thing as thinking about that.
Like, I'm not joking. I think about points in those games probably every day of my life. It's very weird.
It's a good game. It's a very good game.
Red Dead 2 is outstanding. And when I really, really give up on this show, the episode's just going to be me reading the plot.
We'll go back to like Let's Plays, but not like where we stream it. We're just like recording the audio while you or I or both play it, but like don't even talk. You just like,
a static image of we'll say Dutch and his goofy hat.
I need to play that again. There's like an 80% chance that the Black Panther that you just read about is in the game.
Did you know? Did you know there's a place in that game where it's like 9 or 10 o'clock, or maybe 11. I don't know. It's a reference to Back to the Future. But if you're standing in that spot at that time every day in that game, lightning will hit you and kill you.
I did not know that.
It's pretty neat. There's a lot of fun hidden shit. You could play that game for a year and probably not find everything in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should all just stop this and go play Red Dead.
Welcome to the Red Dead 2 podcast.
See you next week. I'll expect a report about Red Dead 2. We'll be back next week. Thank you.
Toodaloo. And such. I'm going to keep talking because I flipped away and can't find my stop button.